names, familiar faces. Chris Swan, how you doing, Chris? David Lukoff. We're talking 2021. What's up, Peter Clifford? Domingo, how you doing? Alejandro, what are all note takers? Fireflies.
Can you repeat that one more time?
If you go through the attendees, there's a bunch of note takers. If you want, come to my computer and I'll show you real quick.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to give some people some more time to come in and then we're going to get started. Looking forward to having a good hour together, talking about the employee retention credit, answering questions. Kevin Sumstein. My favorite part is going through the attendee list, Michael.
I hear you. A lot of great names in there.
It's a smile on my face. Stanley Rose from on the other side of the world. Hope everybody had a great July 4th. Today is the first day back, but it is nice to be back and getting back to what I love to do, helping small businesses and going through questions and answers with everybody on this call. Alejandro, it's 12:07. So Michael, you guys want to get started?
Sure, absolutely. Let's do this. So, Jay, you want me to start out?
Sure.
Okay, cool. So welcome everybody. My name is Michael Glick, referral partner manager, joined by Alejandro Gonzalez and Jason Ben Bassett. We are excited here to be here together. Josh Fox is out and about today, and we are going to be subbing in for him. So I hope you're not too disappointed to see our faces. We've really stepped up in a certain direction here to really focus on training and education when it comes to ERC. So we're definitely going to be speaking, at length about just ERC in general and qualification and some of the adjustments that we've made in order to make sure that we are working with qualified businesses on an everyday basis. But we're also excited for questions and answers, and that's really going to drive a lot of our time today. So we will certainly, as we get to the end here, we'll talk about certain questions and answers. You're welcome to put them into the chat. You can wait until the end, and we'll hit those as we get towards the end of our presentation here. So, just starting out, we don't really have a structured agenda. We just want to kind of share some good information here. And I always like to start with the two ways to qualify for ERC, right? So, very specifically, we are all aware that there is a revenue quantitative qualification, and that is a 50% gross revenue reduction from 2020 compared to 2019 on a quarter-to-quarter basis. Everything is a quarterly analysis. And then in 2021, it is going to be a 20% reduction comparable quarters to 2019, and that is a quantitative qualification. But if you don't qualify on the revenue reduction, then you can qualify on a full or partial suspension of operations. And what that means is, how did a business have to change or modify the way it operated due to government orders causing constraints on commerce, group meetings, or travel? So we just want to always start with that so people understand that. I think in the past, some confusion was about that. It was these these impacts that you had that would qualify you, but no, it's in fact having to have a partial suspension, which means that a business needed to be affected in a more than nominal way. So I'm glad you brought that up, Alejandro, because I want to scroll down to FAQ number 18. And Jason is an FAQ mastermind, so stronger than me on most of this. But if you can scroll down, come out of that one and bring up the IRS guidance for ERC and frequently asked questions that I sent you earlier.
Yep, you said pull up question 18.
Yep, just scroll down from the link that I sent you and scroll down to 18.
So Mike,
Yeah.
So everybody knows that we're redoing our resource center. Some things are not up to date yet, some things are missing, but Alejandro, is this up in our resource center now? Right here?
This link in particular, I will double check, but I believe so.
So I believe it's there, but I believe it's not. I know the IRS did a recent update, so I believe that we have to make sure that the updated link is on there, which we'll do. We can do that today pretty easily.
So everybody, back in a year ago on these Zooms, we used to talk about FAQs 31 to 40. Of course, just like we've grown, the IRS has grown and updated their website and information. And now we're concentrating on, I think it's like 10 to 19. So the link 31 to 40 of old, maybe you can find it somewhere, but this is the new link to use. It basically takes 31 to 40 and adds more information than what was in 31 to 40. They take, like, let's say number 17 might be 3 FAQs in one. So
Right.
There's a lot more information in these FAQs than what we were used to in the past.
And Alejandro, you're going to share that into the chat so people can have access to that link as well. Yes.
Yep, already put it in there.
Okay, great. So, just this question here, because we just talked about something, we mentioned, a nominal effect on a business. So question number 18 says, what factors should be taken into account in determining whether a modification required by a governmental order has a more than nominal effect on the business operations, in order for qualification. So we're just going to read this answer here and just talk about this for a moment. So the types of modifications that are contemplated are those required by a governmental order as a condition of reopening a physical space for business or service to the public. Examples of these modifications include limiting occupancy to provide for social distancing, requiring services to be performed only on an appointment basis, changing the format of service, or requiring employees or customers to wear face coverings. And then it goes on to say the mere fact that an employer must make a modification to a business operation due to a government order does not result in a partial suspension unless the modification has a more than nominal effect on the employer's business operations. Whether a modification required by a governmental order has a more than nominal effect on the business operations is based on the facts and circumstances. So a government order that results in a reduction of an employer's ability to provide goods or services in the normal course of employer's business of not less than 10% will be deemed to have more than a nominal effect on the employer's business operations. So again, when we talk about this 10% shift in the way that a business is operating, comparing pandemic time to pre-pandemic time, that's what we're talking about for this nominal effect. And facts and circumstances mean that this is a more of a subjective qualification. So it is based upon how government orders might have had a more than nominal effect to a business. And this, 10% or more shift is not a hard benchmark to reach, but it is super important that we understand that every single part of ERC is on a quarterly basis, right? And things that were happening in the second quarter or the third quarter of 2020 are not necessarily the same as they were happening in the second or third quarter of 2021. So we must look at everything from a quarterly basis when we are trying to make the analysis of what types of nominal effect these government orders had on this business. All right, we can take that down for a moment.
So, Michael, what I would like to add to that is, right, from the people on the call's point of view, we don't expect you to start asking them quarterly by quarterly questions, right? But what happens is referral partners reach out to us later and say, well, why didn't you do this quarter? Why didn't you do that quarter? Why did you only do Q4 of 20? Why did you only do 2020, not 2021? And the reason is that from talking to the clients, due to government orders, was there still a nominal effect, right? And that can change, right? I mean, I love to give an example of ServPro. A lot of people, I'm sure, know who ServPro is. We see their trucks everywhere. They're very involved in their communities. Well, in certain parts of Florida, by Q4 2020, anything that would affect them came to an end. So therefore, we only qualified them in 2020 and did not qualify them in 2021. And that's really important to know, because everybody, a lot of people, I'm never going to say everybody, but a lot of people believe that everybody just goes to the end, right? You get Q1, Q2, Q3. The people on this call that have worked with us for whether have seen one number, there's a very good chance that clients that they gave us did not qualify for Q3 of 21. 99% do not.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important to know is, look, I think one thing I'm very proud of is that 40% of people that go through our system do not end up qualifying, in our opinion. And we tell them that. They might go somewhere else and get the answer they want to hear, but we don't want to put square pegs in round holes.
Yep, and I see a quick answer is a quick question in here. Is simply requiring the wearing of masks enough to qualify for a nominal effect? The answer is no.
Well, hold on, Mike.
Go ahead. Sure.
So what I would like to add to the answer is no, yes, but every business is different. Every situation is different. This is not a industry-wide program, right? If you're not, just because you have a restaurant, a medical practice does not mean you qualify. The answer is it's very business specific. Okay, what happens by wearing masks? Most likely the answer is no. Like a lot of offices, oh yeah, we had to wear masks. You could still talk. You just had a face covering. You don't qualify, right? What's the impact? Doctors' offices could be a different thing because you're not just looking at masks, you're looking at full PPE gear and everything they had to go through to get it, to be able to have their employees in that.
And then, of course, if, in addition to the masks, they had an office and they had to space out all their desks and they couldn't have all their employees work in the same place and they had to be in-house to do it, and they had to change their operations, they had to change their hours. Now we're starting to get to the idea of this nominal impact where there are multiple ramifications of these government orders that cause some sort of constraint on their ability to operate in a comparable manner.
Right.
So
Like,
we're going to come back to questions and answers, but I just saw that one since we were talking about it, so I figured we'd bring it up. So, in that same way, we talked about nominal impact. If we can bring up the FAQs again, and let's go to number 16 and let's talk about comparable manner. And what we talk about with comparable manner is, how did you operate during the pandemic, and how is that different than how you operated in 2019? So Alejandro, you have a much nicer speaking voice than me, so why don't you go ahead and read the top 16, please?
Yep. What factors should be considered in determining if an employer is able to continue operations comparable to its operations prior to closure, such that the employer's operations are not considered to have been fully or partially suspended due to a governmental order?
Okay, so keep going for us, and you can kind of skim through, but keep going.
So for the answer for 16, the following factors should be considered in determining if an employer is able to continue comparable operations, although additional factors may be considered as well if relevant. So for example, 1, employers' telework capabilities determine whether an employer has adequate support, IT and otherwise, such as that operations can continue via work from another location. 2, portability of employees' work. Determine the amount of portable work or work otherwise adaptable to be performed from a remote location within an employer's trade or business operations. Or 3, need for presence in employees' physical work space. Evaluate the role that the employer's physical workspace plays in an employer's trade or business. This may be crucial and necessary, beneficial but not necessary, or merely convenient. If the employer's physical workspace is critical to its trade or business operations, that tasks central to the trade or business operations are unable to be performed remotely, then this factor alone indicates that the employer is not able to continue comparable operations. Examples of workspace that is critical include laboratories or manufacturing involving special equipment or materials that cannot be accessed or operated remotely. Would you like me to continue, or?
Yeah, I mean, I can do this for you as we go through. So transitioning to telework operations, if an employer can conduct comparable operations via telework, but the employer's operation did not previously allow for telework, and only allowed for minimal telework, then some adjustment period is expected. And generally, the employer's operations are not considered partially suspended during that period. However, if an employer incurs a significant delay in moving operations to comparable telework, then the employer's trade or business may be deemed to be subject to partial suspensions during the transition period. We can bring that down for a moment. And also, in addition, if there was substantial investment needed to be made, in specialized equipment for certain industries, that can come up as well. But, we talk about, in this case, this is a big one, the ability for, first of all, telework, the need to be present, for example, like a physical therapist, right? A physical therapist might be able to, have their clients do telework, but it's certainly not the same as being able to be with a person and do the stretching and do the exercises and use the equipments. So again, when we talk about comparable manner, we need to understand how that specific business operates and the types of changes that they needed to make that would push them outside of this comparable manner and therefore kind of bring on the nominal impact towards qualification. And we'll do one more today because we don't want to bore you guys as well. Let's bring up number 12, the wonderful and Jason's favorite, the supply chain. So bring it up again for us, Alejandro.
Here we go.
So, a lot of times there's not many businesses that weren't affected in some way by the supply chain, meaning that there were delays in their ability to get critical goods. And here in number 12 here is, for a government order causes the suppliers of a business to suspend their operation, is the business considered to have a suspension of operation due to government order? So an employer may be considered to have a full or suspension of operations due to government order if, under the facts and circumstances, they like to talk about that, the business suppliers are unable to make deliveries of critical goods or materials due to government order that causes the supplier to suspend operations. And if the facts and circumstances indicated that business operations were fully or partially suspended as the result of inability to obtain critical goods or materials, then then they can be considered to have this partial suspension and therefore be able to qualify during that time period. And they bring an example here. Employer A operates an auto parts manufacturing business. Employer A, supplier of raw materials, is required to fully suspend its operations due to a government order. Employer A is unable to procure those raw materials for an alternate supplier, and as a consequence of the suspension, Employer A's supplier, the employer, is not able to perform its operations in a certain period of time. And under these facts and circumstances, Employer A would be considered an eligible employer due to the fact that its operations have been suspended due to the government order that suspended operations of its supplier. That's a lot of words and a lot of stuff going on there, but ultimately the supply chain is one way to qualify, but it has to be specific with respect to how their suppliers were shut down and therefore it caused this partial suspension of their business. Jay, is there anything you want to add here? Because I know it's one that comes up often.
Nope.
Okay, cool. Sounds good.
But what I will add is, if anybody has specific questions, please email and ask it. Because again, right now we're talking to hundreds of people, and I don't like to give people answers in a broad way, because I preach this is business specific, not industry specific.
Yep. Super important, by the way, when you could take this down, Alejandro.
Hold on one sec. Someone just put a question in there. Ruth, of course you can come visit the office. We just got to figure out a time, but I promise you, we will make it work. You just let us know what day you want to come, and you'll let us know the hours, and everybody is allowed to come say hello.
Yeah, we do like to set up appointments just so that we can make sure that we receive you well. And Alejandro is our specialist, our host extraordinaire when people are coming down to the office.
Yep, I went ahead and provided her an email that we can coordinate a day and time.
So I do want to bring up an old, the list of qualifiers that we've used in the past, and I want to just make an explanation as we are about to update. So, Alejandro, can you bring up our list of qualifiers that we've had on our referral partner center, just so we understand, this list and what this list means, right? And then I think we're going to move over to questions and answers, and then we can follow up. So again, just because you have one of these bulleted items that you had a change in business hours or shutdown of supply chain or a reduction of service, it doesn't necessarily mean that you automatically qualify for ERC. And what Jason was alluding to is that every industry is specific and every business is specific. And this list is a question that we ask clients. Did you experience this? So we can understand how that is attached to a government orders. These could be certain impacts that could open up the path to qualification. It doesn't just mean that because you wore a mask or because you did social distancing that you automatically qualify. So these are some of the items to consider. Did a business experience this? And then of course, when they get on the call with one of our advisors, we're going to really get into the specifics of their industry and what types of impacts they had, and therefore how they tie to government orders, so we can know they can cross that nominal impact, and we can be absolutely confident that they 100% qualify for ERC. But I know that this is a list that we've used a lot in the past, and it certainly is relevant, but it's only part of the story when we're understanding talking to a specific client and a specific industry. All right, let's take this down. Let's go to some.
Let's go to some questions. That's what everybody likes.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to take the three quick, easy ones. This is not in the chat, guys. Can you qualify if you have 1099s before pandemic hit? Tim, if they switched over to W-2s in 20 and 21 and they're using the same EIN, the payroll is the payroll for that time. So again, I'm not so sure of your situation, but definitely if there's W-2s in 20 and 21, it's worth a conversation. The whole point is that 1099 employees are not eligible for ERC because the company is paying the gross to the 1099 and they're paying the taxes. Christina, let me just see something. Give me one sec, guys. So Christina Poot, you're saying, is there an emergency phone number if we have an urgent question? The answer is no, but I'm going to look something up right now. And give me one sec. And what I would like you to do is send Alejandro an email. Or Alejandro, I'm going to send you a web note so you know who it is. And just reach out to Alejandro. He'll give you his contact information so that if you have any quick questions, just reach out to Alejandro and he would love to help you.
And remember, always rp@bottomlinesavings.com is always being monitored. We get back to every email pretty much by the end of the day. Andrea Stern is one of our managers, and she is there taking care of that inbox. And of course, we will connect you with one of the management team if you have a question. So that's the easiest way to get in touch with us immediately.
And then Joanne, you say, Michael, can you comment on nursing? If you want to add more information, I can probably, if you want to put in the chat or somewhere what you mean by that, let's have a conversation. But now over to the chat questions. Just going back, okay. Great.
Yeah, one more question here from
Stanley Rose, thank you for the kind words. I know we're in different time zones, and sometimes you don't get certain answers as fast as you'd like, but I appreciate our relationship and appreciate you trust us to make sure that we're taking care of the clients the right way. So Robert Kent, you asked about hospitals and colleges, right? We've worked with a lot of private institutions of colleges, and think about all the changes that a college made from going from in-person to Zoom, how teachers taught the classes, how people registered for classes, how they got extra help. Just think about the day-to-day life of what happened at a college. In regards to hospitals, right? If they were doing elective surgeries, they got suspended. So, hospitals, the way they staggered their staff, the way they had to get PPE supplies, that's where supply chain can come in. There's many reasons of how these places can qualify. And if you have anything specific, just reach out to Michael and he can set up a one-on-one with you to go over it. Michael Long, we no longer keep all the recorded webinars in the resource center. Part of the reason is, and I think it's something I always preach, is this whole, being business specific of someone saying, well, I heard it on your webinar and you said this. Well, What about the rest of the conversation? Beat Mueller, you asked, what's the last month money has been paid out? It's still going up. All I can say is that clients are getting paid and clients pay us, and then we pay the referral partner. This business is not going anywhere. I do not personally think it will be sunsetted, and we're just going to continue to help these small businesses across the country understand how and why they qualify, and then hopefully to help take them through the process. Laura Vial, you say what industries are best? I always say 5 to 500 employees. It's business specific. I don't like to base it on industries anymore. Ruth, we answered. Rochelle, okay, that's easy. Okay, Pam Luco, a gift store that relies on customers coming in and their employees have to be in store to stock shelves and help customers would qualify. I mean, I would see most retail stores on the first level. I don't see how they wouldn't qualify, because my gut says this gift store had to put certain rules in place, whether it be curbside pickup, whether it be internet orders, and in the past they didn't do internet orders, whether it be letting 3 people in at a time, lines outside. Definitely worth a conversation. Miranda, you want to come to the office, just reach out to Alejandro or RP@, we can set that up. Yeah, Aris, we're not going to be restoring the previous meetings. So Nick, what we're going to put into play is we are going to try and find another time to also do meetings. Me and Michael and Alejandro have been talking, maybe figuring out a way to do maybe a nighttime meeting. Unfortunately, there also is a daily Zoom that Michael and Alejandro, correct me if I'm wrong here, guys, but we do a daily Zoom, and they're all different hours of the day.
Yep.
So if you can't make this one, you can still come on to that one. They're 30 minutes, maybe 10 minutes is ERC. The rest is also Q&A. And I always say the more people that show up, the more interactive it gets, the more people will get out of it.
Yeah.
Miranda K, if you're a student, of course you can refer a college. Marianne, I'm not sure what you mean about your question about videos. Please reach out to RP@Bottom Line Savings and ask to forward it to Alejandro if you don't have his email address, and we'll handle it. Michael's contact information, Michael@bottomlinesavings.com.
Correct. Both of us, Michael at Bottom Line and Alejandro at.
So Joe Hutchins, great question. When comparing dollars to dollars by quarter, are you looking at gross income or net income? We are not looking at income. We're looking at revenue. People get this mixed up all the time. We're not looking at profitability. We are looking at gross revenue. And part of the reason I believe that this gets hard to qualify on is a lot of things went up in cost. You take trucking companies, you take a container from China to America, it went up by 5x. Then take the truckers that can only get 2 loads a day versus 4 loads a day, their price went up by 5x. So it's really hard to qualify on the revenue just in simple math of the new cost of things. Suhail, out of 10 leads, I would bring in how much on average would qualify? I would say probably 6 would qualify. It all depends on what you're telling these people for when they come on. You know, we had somebody by accident, the way they promoted the product, employees thought they can call us and they would be entitled to $26,000. He failed. He went 0 for life. What percentage of PPP recipients qualify for ERC? Larry, that's a great question because people get this confused. PPP was based on certain things. A good amount of people that took PPP do qualify for ERC, but the correlation is not, well, I got PPP, so I qualify for ERC. PPP is used for the calculations. So whether you had 0 PPP, 1 round or 2 round, it's still going to have a conversation to understand what was the impact to qualify for the employee retention credit. Benny Thomas, can I have a copy of ERC qualifications? We do have a resource center that I would say is 50% done, Michael. Is that a fair number?
Yeah, by the end of this week or next week, we'll have a lot more materials coming up and then we'll continue.
But start in the resource center, whatever's there is helpful. And again, we will get everything up. Oh my God, we have 32 more messages.
And by the way, there are on the resource center,
So,
you can sign up for one of me or Alejandro's onboardings. And again, 10 minutes of information and 20 minutes of Q&A.
so Ken, you say business owners don't know or care if these meetings are recorded. I agree with you. We care. Unfortunately, people were taking the information the wrong way. And we just said, with what's important to us as a company, we just decided it was best to take it down. Because we have enough Zooms going on every week between this and the 5 others, and we're going to add a nighttime call. Michael and Alejandro, let's make that a priority, whether it be once a month, once every 2 weeks to see how it goes. Let's do that. Let's pick a time so that all time zones are at the end of their workday and they can hop on for 30 minutes. And just want to let you guys know on that nighttime one, if we're going to start it at 30 minutes, and if it goes as I hope it goes, it will be an hour.
Yep.
Um,
There was a question, why is the resource center being redone, right? Just like the IRS makes updates to their processes and to their information and to their guidance, we are doing the same to make sure that you guys have absolutely the latest guidance. That is, everything comes from the IRS. So it's about correct information and going out there and being able to supply the correct information to these clients.
Sean Wallace, do me a favor, send an email to rp@bottomlinesavings.com and ask her to forward it to me. And I'll make sure everything is set up and correct and get back to you with information.
There was a question in here saying, I thought businesses cannot file for ERC if they've already received PPP. So originally that was the case, but in January 2021, they opened up the program so that you could take both forms of stimulus. There's just can't be any double dipping, and any wages that were used to compute the PPP must be removed from ERC calculation.
Nick Thompson, I don't understand your question. Why have the meetings if you don't want the majority of the RPs to see the meetings? So look, right, we give everybody the opportunity to participate in this program. You're right. It's not about the majority, right? In life, it's the 80-20 rule. And if only 20 RPs want to be proactive and active in this, we'll be happy. This isn't for everyone. We're just giving everybody an opportunity to learn here. So if I misunderstood your question, I apologize, but that's how I'm taking it.
There's a great question here from Robert Melifon here. How do we reschedule a prospect? And this is one that comes up pretty often. So what you don't do is you don't go ahead and schedule them for another appointment if you've already scheduled an appointment and meaning they didn't show up or there was some sort of miscommunication. But you guys have us. We are here for you. We have a team ready to go at any moment. So if you need to reschedule something, rp@bottomlinesavings.com, or some of you and many of you have been assigned to working with one of us specifically, and we're here for you guys to manage you guys. You guys can reach out to us anytime and we will help you with that rescheduling process. Let's see what else we got here.
Richard Jimenez, great question. All scripts, everything is being redone in the resource center. And just so you know, Richard, if you're working on something and have a specific question about what you're doing, just reach out to us. You know what I always tell people when they call me and say, hey, can I have an email script? I'm not you. You can send us what you want to send to check the facts. But realistically, there's people doing email marketing, cold calling that are better than Michael, Alejandro, myself. And anything we give you is just an opinion. What I tell people, and I hope Alejandro and Michael do also is you got to write what you think is going to get the message across. And if you want, send it to us to check the facts, right? I've had people write, get up to $28,000. I'm going to fix that, Tom. It's up to $26,000. You can qualify for 20 and 21. No, you can qualify through Q3 of 21. But most people should do their own because it's your opportunity, right? If I do it for you, it's my opinion.
And I want to make a comment here also. A lot of questions here about when do the night meetings happen? So we are going to make these changes and we'll give that support to you. But I think something gets forgotten here. Live human beings that are here for you guys. And Jason will tell me, you know, he said to me when I first started with him almost a year ago, he said 9 to 5 is not for us, right? We don't stop ERC. We eat, drink, sleep it. So if you need an appointment with us and out of it, it's because you work and you have a certain position, we're here for you. Reach out to us. We will help you. If you have questions, we're here to guide you.
I can't say it any better than that. And there's a lot of people on here that know and can vouch that that is true.
And there's a question here, can we send a cold email to RP? I'm not sure exactly what that means. So just an understanding here, when you're reaching out to a business and it's what we call a cold outreach, where you're just trying to kind of, you know, throw your fishing, you know, out there, the hook out there, and somebody's going to bite on it. Remember, there's a tremendous amount of information about there. A company that you're reaching out to may have been contacted 3 times, once by phone, once by email, once by text, on their social media, right? What we're trying to make sure that when we're reaching out in a cold email, that we're being respectful, and that we're just basically reaching out to a client and saying, have you heard of, have you filed for ERC? We'd love to connect you with a great company called Bottom Line Concepts. You know, so again, we're working on that verbiage for you. It will be back up shortly on the resource center, but we just don't want to be sending emails like, we guarantee you this much money. We guarantee we'll qualify you. Sometimes you see advertisements, we'll qualify you in 5 minutes. We'll pre-fund you in 2 days. Those are scary. Those are slippery slopes, right? We want to make sure they understand that we need to spend a good amount of time on the phone with a client, understanding their industry, understanding how they were affected by government orders in order to make sure that they're going through the process and we're protecting them, right? Just, you know, going through, just qualifying somebody and not having the right information can mean a lot worse things for that business down the road if they actually don't qualify, and they have to give this money back at a certain time.
Okay, hold on. Jonathan Edwards, how you doing, John? I got to get on one of your Zooms and check in. And if a client has back taxes taken from their refund, do they still owe BL the agreed percent of the total predicted amount figure sent to the IRS, or percent from the actual refund received? It's supposed to include the back taxes. All right, but you know, hopefully people are smart enough to tell us up front that they have back taxes, because the conversation will change a little bit more, right? Of understanding what's the best decision for the client, right? I've told people that have back taxes, don't go through the ERC. They're just going to bury themselves. So, and it's because there's two things that happen with back taxes from my experience with talking to people. Number one is they have to pay 100 cents on the dollar. But I've also learned from experience, some people work out deals with the IRS that they don't pay 100 cents on the dollar. So if they're only paying 70 cents on the dollar, why in the world would they do ERC and pay us our fee? They're going to lose. Again, we always put the client first. Number one rule at Bottom Line, client comes first. So we got to do what's best for them. How can we receive updates on a client who's received a partial payment and waiting on a second payment? You know, if you see paid partial as the stage, please ask questions individually offline. Okay. We do get updates, but please don't expect clients to get all their checks at one time. It is not the norm. Beverly D'Amico, thank you for the compliment. Michael, copy paste that one, buddy. Fabian Mahone, when this ERC is over, what opportunity will there be with Bottom Line? So we have a whole team, Fabian, that's working on next best products. We're still a little ways away from going with it, but I assure you, just like ERC showed up, there'll be other products that show up, and we were definitely going to share it with everybody. Remember, Bottom Line's business model since 2009 has always been referral partners. Nothing has changed. I don't discount the size of this product, but it is just another product. There will be something else.
Yeah. I mean, we've done in the past property tax.
Oh, Robert, that's an interesting idea. Michael Alejandro, he asked a great question. Can you create an update summary page in the resource center for our reference to changes? Michael Alejandro, let's talk about that, because maybe not getting too deep, but we can put bullet points or something to show that this has been updated, and maybe, you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Robert, thank you for that idea. We're going to explore it. Can you talk about taxes on the RCS and RP? James, unfortunately, we are not accountants here, and taxes for an RP, that's something you have to speak to your accountant about. Everybody has different situations. Liana, please send your email to RP at Bottom Line Savings, and we're going to look into it. Stephen Hutter, thank you for the compliment. You're right, guys. I tell people all the time on my sales calls, we are not putting square pegs in round holes. And if you think about why we have these conversations up front, is to make sure we believe, the client believes that they qualify. There will be audits. And the one thing that's great about Bottom Line is that when an audit shows up, we're not going to have to scramble because we're prepared beforehand. It's going to get interesting out there. Pam Luco, thank you for the compliment. Jaren Jones, how much money can I make? Listen, that's a really hard question to ask. It's like anything else in life, it's what you put into it. And that's not something that I think is fair to answer because it will just be an opinion. I have people that are very happy that they helped one friend. I have other people that are happy because they've helped hundreds of small businesses. Everybody has different feelings on what the value of money is. Sandra Jacobs, that's a question that we should take offline. It's very easy why that everybody on that team moved over to the new company. So Kevin Keys, when we invoice, we are supposed to be invoicing based on the checks received. If they hadn't received the check, maybe we invoiced on checks and notices. That's a very specific question. We need to make sure the client's happy. Please reach out to RP at Bottom Line Savings. You can have them tell them to forward it to me and just let them know the client that you're talking about, and we'll take care of that. Robert Melifont, amen. Sales 101. This business is sales 101. Keep it simple, stupid. What other, Sandra, you don't have to apologize. You asked a great question. Just, that's a personal question that I think we should keep private.
We do have some more questions for the Q&A.
Okay.
So guys, I want to talk about these weekly Zooms that are 30 minutes versus this Wednesday Zoom. This Wednesday Zoom is great, but I highly recommend also going once in a while to these 30-minute Zooms because it's live. It's not just us talking, answering from a chat. You can dive deeper to smaller group. It can get business specific, and you can get more out of it or different out of it because you're talking one-on-one with someone versus going back and forth on a chat room. So I highly recommend it. I know people that show up once a week and love it. I mean, there's some people on this chat right now. His initials are AW. He has questions every day. He comes to Zooms. He does trainings. I mean, I was actually surprised to see him here because he comes to so many. So it's like anything else, whatever you put into it. So St. George, why don't you reach out to Alejandro and he'll get you all the links to come to these Zooms. It's very simple. It's in the resource center too.
Yeah,
So,
just
real quick.
a lot of comments here that I've asked for the link. It is in the resource center, which you should all have access to. You could sign up for either myself or Alejandro's. We are going to be making more changes. We know how much you love changes to the process of these Zooms. We are going to really we want more attendance. We want more interaction. It is the questions and answers that drive education because most of you have very similar questions and answers and have the same inquiries. Go ahead, Alejandro.
Tom, but aren't they more designed for onboarding with basic stuff? The call's 30 minutes, and if that part is taking more than 10 minutes, Mike, I make my joke.
Yeah,
If it's taking more than 10 minutes, reach out to me because I need to go talk to Michael.
Again, it's interesting. Everybody, likes certain things. We try to get this out in 10 minutes, and we're working on training videos to kind of replace some of this like basic info because remember, a lot of new referral partners are coming on to these onboardings because they're being invited to do so when they're signing up. right? So again, the training aspect is supposed to be 10 to 12 minutes. So if you want to plan it, listen, join the call 12 or 13 minutes in. You got to give me and Alejandro 3 minutes of leeway. I know Alejandro likes to talk a lot.
Always. Just to jump in real fast, for all you guys wondering how to sign up for these onboarding calls, it's very simple. I'm going to share my screen with you. I provided the link over to the resource center here for you guys to be able to see. Very easy, guys. Just scroll down, right, just a little bit. And on the right-hand side, you'll be able to see Michael's RP onboarding calls or my onboarding calls right over here. You can just go ahead and click on this and then just select whichever day and time works best with your schedule to go ahead and register for it.
Okay, so there's some interesting questions in here that I want to address. Okay. Number one is, did you quit with the guest speakers? The answer is no, but one of my favorite words in business is disrupt. And we were doing the same thing of just bringing on guest speakers and talking about how successful they were. And I understand that works, but sometimes you have to change things up. We're going to bring on more guest speakers. We're going to bring that some back, maybe in a different way than they used to come on. But I'm an RP myself. Michael's an RP himself. Alejandro's an RP himself. So you have guest speakers on the whole entire time. Yes, they're inspirational. But we just want to change things up for a little bit, but we will bring them back. Doug Baker, is there a weekly newsletter? Yes, Michael Glick sends it.
Yeah, there are some that may not be getting it if they change an email. Either way, we're changing platforms within a week. Everybody will be able to get it and be added on, no problem. If you're not getting it, the newsletters are aimed to just remind you about the Wednesday Zoom and also add some information, show some of our charitable efforts, and also testimonials. We are adding a client testimonial to every newsletter. And that's something that's super important to our process because people like to hear from clients, and we've been collecting them. If you have a client that you've worked with in the past and they had a great experience, then reach out to us. We'll work together to help them, get us a testimonial. All right, because those are really
Stephen, you asked a great question. Do me a favor. It's a really long one, and it's not against anybody here, but Stephen, send me an email and I'll help get that question answered for you about your my client, the dog lover. Sean Wallace, I answered your question. Adam Turf, last month's numbers regarding ERC, they're great. At this point, I always say, how many small businesses are we helping? The number is always going to be a big number. It's again, we want to make sure everybody understands here, as much as there's an opportunity to make money, this is all about small American businesses. There is nothing better. There is nothing better than when a client calls you, thanking you, crying because they hadn't paid bills or were now behind on bills. And all of a sudden they got these employee retention credit checks to put back in their business and get back on track. And that's what we're going to focus on. The numbers will come. We're past the point of trying to have to hit numbers. We are at a point now where it's just about helping small businesses. Jaron James, what's the best method of prospecting? It all works. You got to do what you do best. On this Zoom today, you have cold callers, walkers into businesses, people that just took out a list of, there's a great book for sales. It's called Think and Grow Rich, right? And one of the things that they teach is take out your top 100 people and reach out to them. Sybil Trulier, how do you get in touch with business? Don't return your calls. I don't have an answer. George Braddock, is the ERC checks usually smaller or bigger than the PPP check a business qualified for? It's a very interesting question. I would say the numbers are pretty close, especially if they got 2 rounds of PPP. Christine, 7 p.m. is a good time for evening meetings. The problem is if you do 7 p.m., you lose the West Coast. James Benchmull, you asked about SMS campaigns. The only thing I'm going to answer that with is make sure you understand TCPA, because there's a lot of rules out there about SMS. Timothy Walker, if they never recovered from the pandemic to afford W-2 employees, then there's nothing here for you. Has BLC written the IRS to object their overly negative descriptions of third-party ERC preparers? George, we don't fight with the IRS. We just put out our own memos. I understand where they're coming from, and you can't fight it because there's some interesting people out there. I mean, I've met a guy in the business who's never met the accountant doing the work. But he has a good business. I think he's looking, but again, I feel bad for people. Yeah, anonymous attendee about the background. I'm sorry, I don't know what to do. I'm using somebody's office. Spanish landing page, it's coming.
Oh, let's talk on that for a second. Alejandro, can you pull up your personal link on the landing page? Or any personal link?
Yo, guys, listen, Michael, Alejandro, I just want to answer two more questions because I got
Yeah.
I have a client that got 4 or 5 checks. Sergio, email me directly, JasonB @ and I'll help solve this issue.
Just scroll down to the bottom while Jason.
What time frame average are you realizing when it comes to getting clients' paperwork ready and sent off to the IRS? It takes about 2 hours on their end to do the work. It takes us about 3 to 4 weeks. We submit to the IRS. The average is 4 to 6 months. Hey, Michael, Alejandro, and everybody on here, I apologize, but I do have to go. I have to prepare for my 1 o'clock. Again, anybody has any questions, we're all available. Nobody hides, and I look forward to continuing our relationship.
Thank you, Jason. Great to have you here. Alejandro, let's take over just a moment as we wrap things up. Go down to the bottom where it says set language.
Yep.
And now go down and find Spanish for just an example. Every single language can be used. It's currently at the bottom. So now scroll back up. Once you change it, there it is. Look at that. Every single landing page, including all of your personal links, can be translated into any language.
Yep.
Right.
All you have to do is scroll down to the bottom.
So when you go ahead and send these out to a different, language speaking person, you need to let them know that they can transform to whatever language they're most comfortable with just by going to the bottom of the link and being able to hit it. We may change the location of it, but again, that's a great tool that I don't know that everyone was aware of. You can bring that down, Alejandro. Awesome. So again, that's a big one for us, right? To be able to have this go out in any language and have it go through. So that's a big one. Okay, we are coming to the end here. We just want to remind you guys, Jason B's email is jasonb@bottomlinesavings.com. We do prefer that you reach out to either myself or Alejandro, RP at Bottom Line Savings. Jason really has a very full calendar, but of course you can reach out. He might ask one of us to help, depending on the situation. So again, we want to just thank everybody for coming to this call today. We really enjoy doing this. We missed Josh today, but we do enjoy taking over and sharing some good information on you. We want to remind you again, RP at Bottom Line Savings is where you go to get everything started if you have any questions. Andrea will either handle it herself or forward to one of us. We are available to you. We will share our calendars, and any questions you have, any questions about prospecting or any advice you need or anything about qualification, we are here for you. And the one-on-ones are where you guys are going to get most of your exposure, not just these 30-minute Zooms where there's going to be many people on them in addition. All right. Thank you, everybody. We hope you guys enjoyed your 4th. We look forward to this great second half of the year. We know it's going to be a huge one as we march towards the first deadline date of April 15th of 2024. We thank you for all your hard work. So we'll see you guys next week if we don't see you sooner or hear from you sooner. You guys have a great day.
Have a great day, everyone.